Welcome to the Empty Nester Life podcast. I'm Mark.
And I'm Jackie.
And today we are talking about forgiveness.
We are talking about forgiveness. But before we dive into that, we are coming to you from a little bit of a different location, as you can tell. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully this all turns out good, but we're doing the best we can with what we got.
You know, sometimes you just have to make do. The chairs are very comfortable. It's a good temperature. Let's have at it. So talking about forgiveness today at the Empty Nester Life podcast. And I think we've all been hurt.
Definitely.
We've all been messed with.
Yeah.
We've all been dunked on.
I think we've all had our expectations of others not met.
Mm-hmm. And that is just the existence of what happens here in this life. Like you get dunked on, you get messed with, and it hurts, and it's okay to feel that way. I want to say that. I mean, yeah. I think you have to like sort of, you know what? Let me process this. I'm hurt. I'm hurt.
Definitely. Well, and I think too that if we're thinking today, we're really going to be specific about people who maybe have let you down or have some unmet expectations of others, whether your expectations, they may be very realistic or they may not be. So, you know, we're going to delve into that a little bit too. But, you know, today we're not really digging into, you know, big things from the past or that type of thing. We really want to get into this issue of forgiveness within relationships.
Yeah, because that seems like that's where the great divide is. You know, it's always between people, and that's the great divide. And I had this little metaphor that I was thinking about this podcast.
Okay, let's hear it.
And like there's this harbor, right? And you're the king of that harbor, you know? And I think what ends up happening is you know, they build harbors to protect ships and to protect the shoreline and all that stuff from the waves crashing in and destroying and eroding everything. But what happens in this harbor of unforgiveness, is that the harbor is closed. Okay. And nothing can get in. So not only are you kind of dealing with this hurt and this difficulty and this conflict between two people, not maybe, that's what it is, nothing else is getting in either. Because this is, you know, it's kind of one of those things that sort of follows you around. It sort of paints your world. Remember that song, Color My World? It colors your world. And I think that's what unforgiveness does.
Yeah.
And I think forgiveness recolors it. But in, you know, what do they used to call it? Technicolor.
I like that.
Back in the day.
Back in the day.
They called it Technicolor.
Coming to you in Technicolor.
Yeah, that was a big deal. It's kind of like when Dolby came out, you know.
Dolby sound, surround sound. Yeah, it was a big deal too.
Ooh, Dolby. Okay. Now we have Dolby on our phones.
Now it's like, oh, okay. You know, here we are with these little tiny microphones, and hopefully they're giving you a Dolby-like sound.
But anyway, so that's kind of what we do. I think we close our little harbors, we turn off our little lighthouses, and we close up shop.
Yeah, we do. And then we're so busy, like you said, protecting ourselves that we miss out on a lot of the joys, a lot of the blessings. You know, let me start by saying that what had spurred us on to do this specific episode is that we're going through this Bible study at church, and it has a section on forgiveness. So we're going to be really kind of referring a lot to this because you and I are not exactly experts in psychology or whatever. But man, when we went through this, I think both of us had a couple of little aha moments. And so we thought, you know what, let's do a podcast episode on this, because we think there's a lot of hurt in the world right now. And a lot of that hurt is caused by unforgiveness. Yeah,
but I don't think I need to have a master's degree in psychology or psychiatry in order to understand
that's true.
Hurt and pain and forgiveness and, you know, forgiving and that sort of thing. Because I look at it through the lens of kind of how God dealt with us or deals with us, how God deals with forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best PhD in the world.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. I mean, really, if you think about it, if we go to the Bible, and this, we want this to be relevant for you, whether you believe in the Bible or not, but we're going to reference the Bible a lot, so you've been warned. I think if you go to the Bible, really everything is about forgiveness, because the Bible tells us that all have sinned, none are righteous, no one seeks God, no one is good. So I don't know about you, but that sounds like somebody who's really messed up and is in severe need of forgiveness.
I think it's a great place to start. If you understand the fallenness of everyone, if you're being honest.
Right.
Now, you may not, want to be honest with yourself maybe, and you're like, well, I'm a good person. Okay, well, just go back and, go back to when you were 3 or 4 years old, and then fast forward to where you are right now. Have you always been a good person? Always, 100%. And if we're being honest with ourselves, no. And the Bible tells us, yeah, we're not good. We're not right. We don't even seek good for the most part. Now, I'm not saying, that we're just horrible, rotten people and, we should be in solitary, that sort of thing. We do good.
Yeah.
We do good. But if you see this in yourself, then when someone wrongs you, hurts you, right? Then I think you can say, wait a minute, maybe I should have a little bit of grace here.
Because truly, if you are, again, if we're staying in the Bible right now, we know that God has forgiven us. I have sinned against God. I have wronged God. And yet, even in the midst of all of that, God sent his only son to pay the price for my sins. He took that price upon himself for me. And so, who am I? Who am I to judge somebody else?
To hold something against someone else.
Right. How dare I, who have been forgiven so much, look at somebody who I think should be doing something different or better, or maybe thinking of me more, and I feel like, they're being self-centered and they're not thinking of me. Okay, if you love that person, then it's more important to be in relationship with that person than it is to be right.
Yeah, and we're coming from a biblical worldview. We're coming from a worldview that says that Jesus came to die for sinners, and he forgives us if we repent and believe in what he did, that he died on the cross and rose again. We're coming from that worldview.
Right.
And so I want to point that out. I'm not making any excuses, at all. I'm unapologetic when it comes to believing in that theology and that trust that I have in what Jesus did.
Right. No, but it is important to know kind of our view and where we're coming from. So will this still be relevant to you if that's not your worldview, if you don't come at it from a biblical worldview? Well, I say stay with us, because I think it is. Because there's a lot in here that really is, if we dig down to the heart of this, and we're going to really get into what is forgiveness by first looking at what forgiveness is not. If we really dig into this, it really all comes down to putting our pride aside. I think there's a lot to be said for the fact that, again, I know we've talked about this in past episodes, where we sit on the kingdom, we sit on the throne of us, in the kingdom of me. Mm-hmm. And we expect everyone to bow down to the throne of me. And that's pride. That comes from a place of pride. And if you really think about our social media right now, and media, and all of the different messaging that's being thrown at us on a daily basis, it's telling us that that's the way to be, that we should be all about me, and everybody around me should be bowing down to me, my belief, my truth, my thoughts, my reality.
Well, that's postmodernism.
Yeah, and
it's a
work.
Post-Christian sort of way to live a life. And so basically it's humanism, right? It all comes down to me. It's about my comfort, and it's about what I have created, and it's egocentric, and it's very centric, where it's really just all about us. And so when we were wronged, we can be very indignant, and we can say, this is just, and we can go off.
Right.
We can completely go off.
And I think it's really important to know that, whether you're coming from a biblical worldview or just a relational worldview, if you're not a believer in the Bible yet, then it's about this relationship right here. Whereas if I'm sitting on the throne of me and Mark does something that makes me feel like I'm slighted, then I have two choices. I can choose to walk around really bristled up.
Which we do sometimes for a while.
Sure. I mean, everybody does it for a little bit, but how long am I going to hang on to this? Oh, this feeling right here. And the more I walk around with this, the more I feel justified in this. Or I
think you dig in.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's choice number one. Choice number two is I can look at Mark and say, you know what? He's human, just like me. Mm-hmm. He makes mistakes, just like me. And I actually really like Mark, and I want to be around Mark. So if I walk around like this, I don't want to be around him. But if I offer forgiveness and grace, then we can put it in the past and just move forward together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely is freeing. I think if we just hang on to things, and they could be things from years ago. You could be dredging up things from 10 years ago, 20, 30, 50 years ago. You might have been hurt as a kid.
Yeah.
And now you got re-hurt as an adult. I mean, I don't know. And maybe by the same person, or sort of the same sort of occurrence happened. And it triggers that old emotion. And that's difficult. It's super difficult, and it's okay. You're human, and you're going to have to work through it. And I know sometimes I'll hang on to stuff, and I think to myself, well, I really need to be forgiving, because man, I was forgiven of everything, and it was just so much grace. I don't understand it. But I'll say I'm going to do it. I'm not doing it right now. Going to hang on to this for a little while, because I'll tell you the other reason. I think I've actually processed this through. I think that's it. I want to process it. I want to think about all the angles of the whole thing, and I really want to understand what I'm forgiving.
That's a good point.
I think this is something that happened recently, and I knew I needed to forgive this person, but I had to think about all the angles. And then I sort of forgave, and then I took it back a little bit. And then I had to think about all the angles again, and found some new pressure points, let's call them.
Okay.
And, okay, well, there's this. And maybe there's lasting repercussions or something. Who knows? I'm just saying, I know I had to do that for me, for true forgiveness. But ultimately, I'm so humbled by being forgiven for all my sins that I feel so grateful for that. I feel so grateful for the forgiveness of my sins. Because I'm a Christian, I believe in Jesus died for my sins, because my sins put him on the cross. I'm so grateful and thankful for that I can't possibly withhold my forgiveness, because it's not just. It's not right. It's not what Jesus did, and I want to emulate him as much as I possibly can.
That's a great point. And you just said something that when you started talking about gratitude, my mom used to say that what she wants to be remembered for is gratitude. If she had any wisdom she could impart upon anybody, the wisdom was, find something to be grateful for, and there's always something. And I think there's so much wisdom in that, because if we are coming from a heart of gratitude, it's really hard to stay bitter. I think bitterness and gratefulness can't really coexist. And so you're almost evicting your bitterness by choosing gratefulness.
Yeah, no, yeah, and you can really hang on to that bitterness and anger and pain, and I think that's a really good point. I mean, in Colossians 3:13, it says, "Bearing with one another, and if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive." And it doesn't say you should probably forgive, or maybe you should think about maybe forgiving. It says you must also forgive because you've been forgiven. Now, if you don't believe that Jesus died on the cross for your sins, then you're kind of in that, well, maybe. But as Christians, we believe this is the Word of God. So when it says we must forgive, then we forgive, not grudgingly, though.
Right. So
Not grudgingly.
So if you really look at that scripture, if you go back, so that was 3:13. If you go back to 3:12, it says, "Put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts." So you got to put on a compassionate heart. You have to find compassion for the person that you're seeking to forgive. Kindness, humility. I mean, come on, humility is the opposite of pride. So
That's true.
That's coming from that spot. Meekness. Meekness does not mean being weak or subservient. Meekness means
It's actually a strength.
it is a strength.
Yeah.
And patience. And then it says bearing with one another. And I think that's really key, because if we're talking about going into forgiveness, I think the term bearing with one another is really important, because let's face it, as humans, we have to learn how to bear with one another if we're going to be happy together.
Well, yeah, and to hop on that point, yeah. So we bear with one another, and talking about being happy. I think what ends up sort of vacating your life is happiness. But it's deeper than that. It's joy. It's peace.
Yep.
It's hope. It's comfort. It's like a disease in your brain, I think, after a while, because you may have sort of a few things that have happened to you.
Yeah. I mean,
You start stacking them up.
Yeah.
That starts to get pretty toxic for you. And I just want to say, it's human.
Yeah.
It's human. I'm not sitting here holier than thou. I mean,
No.
I'll come back to things that I've forgiven and go, did I forgive that? Because I don't feel like I've forgiven. I'm still mad. And I go, is this hatred? I do. I'll look over stuff and I'll go, what is this? I mean, am I still harboring something? Have I still closed off my harbor? Maybe. And, that's this imperfection of humanity.
Yeah.
But I think understanding and having the humility to know that you are human, you're not perfect at doing anything. You're not perfect at forgiveness either.
And, the other thing is you may have a right, but what's that saying? You can be right or you can be happy. Sometimes hanging on to your rights is what is going to make you really truly miserable, because it really, again, it's being on the throne of you. So let's talk a little bit about what forgiveness is not. And again, before we jump into that, I did want to just say, like you said, we're not coming from a place of like, we got this all figured out, we're perfect, all of that stuff. We actually were so blessed by this chapter and the exercises in this chapter when we did this together a few weeks ago in this Bible study, that's why we thought, we want to share this with the people on our podcast, because we just think it's so powerful. So forgiveness is not condoning, dismissing, excusing, or enabling sin. So forgiving someone doesn't dismiss what they did. And I think that's a really important point, because a lot of times people go, but if I forgive that person, if they haven't asked for forgiveness and I extend forgiveness, they're going to think they got away with it.
Well, the other thing I think too is that it's a lesson for you that have been, dunked on. And it's hopefully a lesson from them. Maybe they can learn that too.
Yeah, exactly. By forgiving them.
So it's not like it gets forgotten. It's not forgotten. I wrote this note down here, and it says it's not about resolution with the person, but between you and God. That healing can come later. So really, the first move is to God. because it's a sin, right, not to forgive. So we go to God, and I know you want to go on there, but we go to God, and we resolve this with God, and say, I'm forgiving this, and then we go to the person.
Yeah, and well, to that point is that you're giving your by forgiving someone, it's not like you're just saying, oh, it's okay. You're actually saying, I'm choosing not to live with this bitterness, this anger, this feeling. I'm choosing to give the justice to God and trusting that God can handle whatever it was that was wronged, whatever that person or people did to you that you felt slighted or wronged or dunked on, as Mark said. You're giving God the ability to do his work. And P.S., he does a really good job. Way better than what we do.
Yeah, I like the note down here. We have all heard the saying of forgive and forget. It says it's a common saying, but in reality, you need to honestly acknowledge the offense and the damage it has caused to truly forgive the offender. And also remember that God sees everything. Not only sees everything, he can read your heart. He knows your mind and your heart better than you do.
Definitely. I think it's important. I like this note where it said, forgiveness simply means that the person doesn't owe you anything for the harm you suffered.
Yeah.
I think that's really good. And I do want to credit, because we are really reading directly from this, we should credit.
This is Reengage.
This is from Reengage, and you can learn more. We'll put a link down below where you can learn more about this. It's a marriage Bible study, but it's certainly relevant for not just between a married couple.
And we got roped in, and man, we're so glad we got roped in. We were a little hesitant. Oh man, we got to give up all these Mondays. And but it was a pilot program for our church, so we had a nice little coffee with some people and some real nice folks, and we got roped in, and it was a good rope. They pulled us in, and we've learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
And we've really, I think we've come closer.
We have.
We've come closer because of it, because you have to have dialogue. When's the last time you sat down with your husband or wife or significant other and had a real conversation?
Right?
A real
you're not
conversation.
Just talking about what happened today, what happened at work, what did the kids do?
Yeah.
It's not, this is like, we've gotten really deep and really been able to re-engage with one another in a meaningful way. So definitely recommend. So let's continue on with what forgiveness is not.
All right.
Forgiveness is not a feeling, and it's not conditional. I think that's really key. Like this says, if you wait,
I'll forgive you if you. Yeah,
Right.
It's not conditional.
It's not conditional.
It's just saying, listen, that was messed up, and that was messed up. Especially in families, you can kind of layer it. That's not it. You can say that, and then you can say, I forgive you.
Yeah.
I totally forgive you, and let's start over.
Yep.
Because that's really what forgiveness is. It's a new beginning. Because once you have truly you've forgiven, and they understand that they hurt you, and that that you have forgiven them, they've been forgave. There is a new starting block.
Right.
You can go and you get in your little harbor boat and cruise out and open up the gate and let everything in, and all of a sudden you see a new freshness, a new bunch of fish roll in, right? The dolphins come. And it's joyous and it's happy, and maybe a couple of killer whales in there because they're super cool. Not that they're going to kill anything, but I love them because I think they're really neat. But anyway, I'm just saying they all come in, and it's just it's festive. It's almost like a little picnic.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to note about forgiveness, not necessarily killer whales, but about forgiveness, to know that even if you've chosen to forgive someone, you may still have some hurt. You may still have some frustrations.
Yeah.
You may still have some fears. And that's okay. Forgiveness doesn't mean you're just putting all of that in a little jar, tightening the lid on it and throwing it out the thing and saying, I guess I'm done with all that. Doesn't mean that. It just means you're choosing how you're responding to this. If you're choosing to respond to those fears, frustrations, and hurts from a place of forgiveness, that looks different than choosing to respond to it from a place of I'm hurt and I'm right to be hurt. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I think if there's dialogue, like we were talking about this re-engage program we've been through, dialogue is really important and talking out is really important. But in the end, the goal, if let's say you choose to initiate, the goal is to forgive and to reconcile.
Yeah,
A reconciliation.
well, and what's
right? I mean,
that is the goal. But what's interesting is forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean that you've made amends or reconciled.
or you necessarily even have a relationship going forward. I mean, I hope that would be the case, but it doesn't necessarily mean that.
Yeah, I think.
But I think reconciliation should be a byproduct. But
I think so.
I know our text says you don't necessarily have reconciliation.
Well, because if you went through this, you would know. I mean, not you, but like if you go through this, you would know that it says it's not making amends and it's not reconciliation. So the next 2 chapters are, guess what? Making amends and reconciliation. So like those actually get their entire own chapter.
Yeah.
But forgiveness is just the first step. You can't get to making amends or get to reconciliation if you don't have forgiveness. And it's not just about the person who hurt you. Forgiveness is about you trusting God. Forgiveness is about you having trust in something bigger than the initiation of the hurt. So
that's true.
okay, I didn't know. I thought you had something to fight, and then you just didn't.
It happens sometimes in podcasts. And I got this whole respiratory thing a couple of weeks ago, and so I've been kind of fighting that. That's the other reason like we didn't have like a podcast.
Yes, I meant to address that right
so
from the top.
I was kind of a little under the weather. I wasn't really horribly sick, and I don't want to say I haven't been sick for a couple of years, but you can kind of hear it in my voice maybe a little bit. But that's why. So I'm just kind of trying to get up to speed here, talking in front of camera.
Well, I just want to say, if forgiveness isn't just about the person who hurt you, and it's about trusting God, I think it's understanding that, the person who hurt you may not ever change. They may not. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that you throw the baby out with the bathwater. It doesn't mean that you throw away the entire relationship. But it also means that you just move forward in that relationship knowing what that person is capable of, where they're coming from, and is it worth giving them grace to understand that, there's reasons. I don't agree with the reasons, but you know what? This is who this person is, and I love that person, and I choose to have a relationship with that person. Maybe we're talking about your adult kids, your parents, your spouse, your friend, Yeah,
and I will say this, and I like this. They're talking about it in the text. You may not get an apology and don't feel like you're owed one.
Yeah.
Oh man, really? Yeah, I mean, you feel like apologies sort of like you kind of get a little bit repaid. And, they kind of chronicle the things they did and they agree with you and that sort of thing. We're all wired different. Some people may not want to kind of that little payment you want, which is called an apology, may not ever happen. But it's not, again, don't necessarily think it's between you and that person. You're going to God on this. You're going to God on this and say, listen, I've been harboring this ill will because of the stuff that happened to me. God, forgive me for that. I let it go. I forgive them. And it may be a situation, honestly, it may be a situation where it would be a very horrible thing for you to sit with this person. It may be too traumatic. The hurt may be too deep, and it might be dangerous. I don't know. We don't know. We could be talking. We have people from all over the world that literally see our channel, and we don't know what your situation is. There may be a situation where you're not sitting chair to chair, and having a discussion. But that doesn't mean you can't forgive them, because it frees you,
Yes.
right? That gratitude that you have by being forgiven by God frees you now to not carry and have this cloud follow you around. So always keep that in mind. You may not ever talk to them. You can forgive without talking to them, and you may never get an apology. You may never get, like, reparations, whatever it might be.
Still.
If that's your expectation, that you never get an apology, and then when you do, that's kind of, because apologies are nice.
Yeah, apologies are
They
nice.
are nice.
And sometimes, sometimes an apology doesn't look like coming to somebody and saying, I'm so sorry, I did wrong, can you forgive me? Sometimes an apology looks like the two of you just picking up and moving forward in a relationship.
I knew you were going there, and I think that's key.
Yeah, like nothing needs to be necessarily said or done to make this like magical moment, because sometimes those fall short too, because now you're expecting an apology, and if the apology falls short of your expectation, you're hurt again. It's nonsense. So sometimes, honestly,
it really can recreate itself, and it can come out in a lot of other different degrees. You just have to have this really unconditional forgiveness, and not put expectations on, say, a reconciliation, that sort of thing.
Well, and there's times, even especially like this, I think is really relevant. The closer you are as a family member, the more this is relevant, because there's times when you and I will get like snippy with each other or whatever, and then we have our little thing. We say 1, 2, 3, be sweet, and then we just let it go. That's our cue to each other. Like we're both being a little up in our pride, frankly, and a little snippy, and then we just move forward, and that's great.
Yeah, and I will say that's 99% of our arguments, and we don't get into a lot of arguments, but 99% of our arguments is small stuff. Unless it's, and I'm very pragmatic. So unless it's really, really deep, life or death stuff, I think everything's small. She, on the other hand, is a woman.
Thank the Lord for that.
Not everything is small to her as it is to me. And that's okay, because we all have our different perspective on life and, circumstances. Yeah. And so I would say that's okay too. But so sometimes I'll sort of like, hey, 1, 2, 3, be sweet. And she doesn't want to do it because she thinks it's a bigger thing. And truth be known, it could be. Maybe I'm just pragmatic, and I just want to, let's move on. We're having dinner. Let's have a nice dinner. Or we're just hanging out. Let's just hang out, man. I think sometimes I do, and I think I'm wrong in some of those cases. And we had this discussion. We had this very discussion going through some of this stuff in this book. Like, here's kind of what I do. Yeah. And she goes, yeah, I know you do that. But she goes, I get it. I get it. And sometimes it really works really good. Yeah. I'd say for the most part it works good, but then sometimes, when it's something that's maybe more important to her, or she sees it as bigger, she wants to circle it a couple of times. And I have to have enough grace to say, okay, she needs to circle it a couple of times. You know what I mean? And
I think what you're just saying there is really key. What that boils down to is you have to have an understanding of the person that you're forgiving. It's not just about forgiving the act. It's about looking at this person and knowing what they're capable of, knowing who they are. And if they're people that are close to you, like a spouse, specifically, I think this stuff is more relevant the closer someone is to you. So your spouse, your adult children as empty nesters, this is a big one. Your adult children, or your parents if they're still with you, with us. I don't know, with us. Yeah. If they're still with us, then that can be a factor. So I think one of the things in here, we have a scripture verse from Matthew 18 where it says, Peter came up to Jesus and said, Lord, how often will my brother sin against me and I forgive him? As many as 7 times? And Jesus said, I don't say 7 times, but 70 times 7. Basically saying your forgiveness should be limitless. if somebody sins against you and asks for forgiveness. So, I mean, I just think that that's important. And I think the other one is to let all bitterness and wrath and anger and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you.
So I'm going to sum all that up.
Boom.
Just don't hold a grudge.
Yeah.
But it is a boom. That is a boom.
Boom.
Rerun that if you need to rerun that. It's excellent. But it's just not holding a grudge.
Yeah.
The bitterness is gone. The pain and the hurt will dissipate, and life will be opened up. And there has to be a willingness on both sides of the fence here to hear being forgiven, and then someone who's been forgave of this, let's call it a trespass or this issue.
Yeah.
So there has to be an openness of heart. And, we also believe, as people that are born again, that we got a new heart.
Yeah.
And so this new heart needs to be filled with compassion and grace. And then our subject for the day is forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And you just end up with this eternal perspective, right? And so that's kind of, I think, where I always go, like, well, nothing's really too big. Like, death isn't really, like, Christians deal with death even differently, just because it's not too big, because we believe we're present with God, right? We're present with Jesus. So death isn't as big a deal. It's a big deal, but isn't as big a deal.
Let's look at understanding biblical forgiveness.
Okay.
I think that we've talked a lot about it already, so I don't want to belabor the point. But the one thing that I have underlined here that I think we need to say is that there is no injustice with God. So when you're forgiving somebody else, you are releasing your claim to, show justice, and you're giving it to God, knowing that there is no injustice with God, which means God will take care of it. God's at work. Maybe God's at work in the person who you need to forgive. And maybe by coming to that person, reestablishing relationship or giving forgiveness, maybe that alone will help free that person to whatever work God is doing in their heart. That's point number one. But you know what else? It frees you. It frees you to live free from hurt and all that bitterness and anger as well.
Well, let me jump on that justice, God's justice. So a lot of times in life, people will get away with stuff. And people always talk about how difficult things happen to people. And let's just say somebody gets away with murder. They murder someone, they never, ever get caught. And that happens a lot. There's a lot of unsolved murders. We're just going to stick with murder. We trust in a perfectly just God. Just so you know, if you forgive someone who did a horrific harm to you, they will get justice. Everyone gets justice. And let me just say, you don't want justice from God. What you want from God is you want grace. Justice, very difficult, because that's judicial. That's a difficult thing. You will be judged on your actions. But grace is what you really, 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 really want.
It's forgiveness.
So just understand that there will be justice for everything, other than the things that are forgiven by God through Jesus on the cross. Those people that trust in Him end up with grace, and they don't get the justice that they would deserve without Him.
I think a good way to wrap that up is a very good point, and I think a good way to summarize that is to say, what if God forgave you the way you are currently forgiving the person who wronged you?
Yeah, it wouldn't be very pretty, is what you're saying.
Right, because what you're saying is, we want forgiveness, but we want to give justice. You're saying God's got this. God's got the justice, and you want the forgiveness, you want the grace. So leave the justice to him and let it go so that you can experience it. Frees you. It frees you to love better. It frees you to have more joy, to have more happiness. And it's not just about like your mental, how you feel. It's also about your health. When we're holding on to bitterness and anger, and you get the kink in your neck, but it raises your blood pressure. It gives you headaches. It can have real
Physical
effects
and psychological effects.
Yeah. So I just think that's kind of important to
Understand,
have that. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely understand
Right?
that. At the end of the day, we're flawed people, and we have to be honest about that. We're flawed people, and so as flawed people, we really need to be more grace-based. And I think because of the way the world is now, and I would say the reason the world is the way that the world is right now is that everybody's a reporter, and everybody is they're trying to, I don't know, gain clicks or whatever, and it seems like the things that really gain clicks are kind of mean stuff.
Yeah.
And
Rage baiting.
yeah, I think that's kind of it. There's rage entrepreneurs. They're all about rage. They're entrepreneurs. It's how they make money, and they're not going to change because it's how they make money. It's how they stroke their check for their car every month, because they're rage entrepreneurs. So if we kind of look at it that way, this society that we live in now is not the way it's supposed to be. It will be right and it will be perfect.
Yeah.
But right now, we're just called to forgive, to have some grace, to love one another, love God and love one another. I mean, I love it. Frank Turek put on his Facebook page the other day, what's the purpose of life? And a lot of people weighed in. And I said to know God and be known by God, which I know is another answer, but really the really ultimate answer is to glorify God and love him forever. The purpose of life, glorify God and love God forever. And if you love God, you love your neighbor as yourself, and then everything changes. We don't need forgiveness because we would never would you ever treat your neighbor like you treat yourself, like you just treated your son or your dad or your best friend or your colleague? No, because you want to be treated right. Love your neighbor.
It's good stuff. So let's wrap it up with this.
Okay.
They give us a prayer that has an acrostic that spells out free, F-R-E-E. And I love this. It says, if you don't know how to forgive, here's the prayer. And so if you do, F stands for face the truth. Face the truth of the sins against you and grieve the hurt. So you grieve that pain. That's okay. R stands for release your wounds. Release your wounds to God and ask for healing from that pain. The first E stands for entrust your claims for justice to God. In other words, don't hold on. You don't have to be judge and jury. You're going to let God do that. You're going to entrust him with that. And the last E is exalt God for offering peace through Christ to all.
I mean, 60 to 70% of the people in the United States call themselves Christians, so this shouldn't be too offensive to you.
I wouldn't
because
think.
we're always going to lean into God on this channel, because that's our worldview.
Yeah.
God doesn't hold our stuff over us, and so we shouldn't hold other people's stuff over them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to end that. So here's what I want to give you a moment as we're going through this. I'm pretty sure that every single person watching this has somebody, at least one person in mind that they need to forgive right now. And I'm sure we're also, we're human. We sit on the throne of us. And so I'm sure during this, you're thinking of people, who maybe should be offering you forgiveness. That's not the point right now. The point is, who do you need to forgive? And I want you to think about that. And how can you apply what we've just talked about towards forgiveness to whoever is coming to mind? Maybe it's one person, maybe it's multiple people, and maybe you're sitting in a place of real blessing right now where you're not having this between spouses.
I feel good right now.
Kids or parents or whatever. Maybe that's true, but maybe there is somebody, a friend, a colleague, somebody from the past, So whoever that is, and then I would just encourage you to use that free prayer as to how you can approach forgiveness to that person.
Maybe post that in the notes.
Yeah, I can do that. I'll
Throw
put
that in there real quick.
I'll put that in there.
We would also enjoy this, that you would hit the alert button, and subscribe to our Empty Nester Life channel.
Yes, and if you don't, we will forgive you.
Lovely. It has been really awesome hanging out with you once again. Sorry that we missed a week or two. It was me.
It was all his fault. He was sick, but he's on the mend now, so we're back with you. Anyway, hey, thanks for joining us. This has been Mark and Jackie with the Empty Nester Life.
Peace
See you
out.
next time.